Atazai. Okay. So the last thing we learned was after Gvina, before Basar, you have to be you have to make kinuach and atocha. Beishamai talked about kinuach. Beisil talked about atocha, but the Gemara said v'loy pli. They both agree. One just was discussing kinuach, and the one was discussing atocha. Your Bezeir said, "Ein kinuach peh elo bepas." So we are now at the Gufa, which is about 15 lines down into Kuf Hey Amar Aleph, Gufa Amar Abzeira, Ein Kinuach HaPeh Ela Bepas. Zok to Gemara, Hanamili, what type of bread? B'dechiti, wheat bread. It wipes the mouth well. Al b'desai loy, barley bread, Rashi says, breaks into small pieces, and it will not do a good job of wiping your mouth. Only if it's cold bread. If it's hot bread, Raji says it becomes too soft and it itself gets very sticky and will stick to your mouth. That's only if it's soft. But if it's very hard bread, you're going to have the same problem. It's going to crumble. The Halacha says kinuach will work for everything. Levar mikimcha tamri v'yaraka, except for kemach is flour, tamri are dates, and yaraka are vegetables. Rashi says rakadain, they're too soft and they won't scrub them out. Zok to Gemara vayt. Boy minir abatzi merbid. Kama yisha bein basar legavina. How much time do you have to wait after basar until you eat gavina? Which is where Rashi says, "Mash achal basar, v'roitz alechol gavina." So zog to Gemara, you don't have to wait at all. Obviously, we don't pass them. Lufa Omar Chista achal basar, aser lechol gavina. If you ate basar, you're not allowed to eat gavina. But gavina, if you ate gavina, muter lechol basar, you are allowed to eat basar. What about the meat that's left in between your teeth? Is that called basar? And therefore you wouldn't be able to eat milchiks until you took that out of your mouth, or you don't have to worry about it. So what did he answer back? Rashi says, Alma Mikri Basar, you see that it was still called Basar because even though it was a little bit of time later, the Basar that was still in between their teeth was referred to as Basar. This is going by this. This is talking about the Slov, which would again accentuate what David said yesterday, that the Torah directly refers to it as Basar. Now our Gemara refers to it as Basar because our Gemara is using this pasuk to say that basar between your teeth, even after a while, must be removed before you're allowed to eat milchiks. Legabi this halacha of how long to wait between milchiks and fleishiks, between fleishiks and milchiks, I am like vinegar, the son of wine, meaning I went bad. My father was much better than me. He would wait a full 24 hours after eating fleishiks before he would go back to eating milchiks. I just don't need it for this meal. And this is what our minhag comes from. Our minhag of waiting 6 hours comes from this minhag. But Tosfos speaks out, which is our minhag, and that's why we wait 6 hours. And alter mutter. So Tosfos learns that you don't have to wait 6 hours, which is a normal span between meals, even a short time. And this was the German custom to even wait only 3 hours. Zok to Gemara weiter. Amar Shmuel. Another hamil. So me, Lagabi, the thing that I'm about to discuss. Thank you so much. Lagabi, what I'm about to discuss, I am again like Chala Barcham. And this is Lagabi business. Lagabi Abba. Abba have a sire nichse trades money beyond. Every day he would check his business issues twice to make sure everything was going okay. I only checked over my business once a day. Shmuel held that checking over on your business, being on top of your business, was very important. If you're standing over your business every day, you're going to find money. He also would be very on top of his business. And one day, he met, coming out of one of his fields, was a sharecropper. And guess what? The Dori Pascha the Uifi. He was schlepping a bundle of firewood, basically planning to walk away with it and steal it. Omer Le, so Abai said, "Excuse me, Hani Lecha, where do you think you're going with these?" Omer Le, what do you mean? I'm taking it to your house. Like he never did that before. So now he's trying to make it look like he's not stealing. Omer Le, Rabbanon, I got ahead of you. And they told me you got to check because of people just like you. That's why I'm here. In other words, I know you're not bringing it to my house. You tried to steal from me. And being that I listened to Shmuel and Osai Nixay, I caught it. If Duvi's here, there's a famous story of Mr. Pearl. He used to have a closed circuit TV by his desk upstairs to see everything that was going on in the store. And one day, one of the women who works in the store, her husband comes and he packs himself up a bag of cold cuts, the meat. He's packing himself up and he's about to walk out of the store. So Mr. Pearl pushes the loudspeaker. I think it was just your side. He pushes the loudspeaker and he says, Yankel, wie geht's dir mit der Fleisch? So is that a true story?
I heard it, but I wasn't there when it actually happened.
Oh, I would have loved to see that. That's Mamish Mekayim, this Gemara, this is Mamish the story of Abaye. You got to be Sai Nixay, otherwise people walk off. Zok to Gemara Baiti. Rav Asi Havasai Nichse Kol Yom. He also watched over his nechasim just like Shmuel. Omar, he said, Heicha Ninu Kol Hana Istri Demar Shmuel. I don't see the money that I'm saving. Shmuel said, you find money. I didn't find money. I'm doing this for days, and I didn't find any money. Yom Echad, one day when he's looking over his fields, he saw a irrigation ditch that overflowed, that was starting to flood his property, that would have ruined his entire crop. Quickly, he grabbed his shirt and he squeezed it into a bottle and karche and and he shoved it into the breach temporarily to hold back the water. Ramakala, he scrapped for help. Also, Inchi, Sachrua, people came and they helped him prepare it. So, now I found all the money that you told me about. Because had I not been here to catch this, I would have lost my entire crop. Zotumar Viter. Amar Abidi Bar Avin, Amar Abutzak Bar Ashton. Mayim Rishonim Mitzvah. Natila Shadayim is a mitzvah. The Achroinim, but my Achroinim is Chayva. So, what's the difference between mitzvah and Chayva? You need to do them both. So, Rashi says, Chayva adifa mi mitzvah. We're going to see why it's a chayv versus a mitzvah. But if we look at Tosfos, I want to highlight just one little part of Tosfos. The im toimar l'may nafkamina hadi rishonim mitzvah v'achroinim chayva mali mitzvah. Mali chayva. What's the difference if it's just a mitzvah or if it's a chiyuv? Hatarvayu chayva. You need to do them both. Kidikatani b'brayis. V'loy rishos. They're not optional. They're both mandatory. The question is the level of chiyuv or mitzvah. Why does that make a difference to us? We would have to do the mitzvah anyway. Zok Tosfos v'Omer Rabbeinu Tam, Nafkamina leading Melchemes Rishus. By Melchemes Rishus, you're potter from a mitzvah, but you're chayiv on the chayv. Turin Mechizah Shadayim, the Ka'amar, Rav Chia B'Gemara, Leishanu L'mayim Yishanim Al B'Lachroidim Loi, because it's chayv. So that would be the difference. The difference would be is if you had a Melchemes Rishus, would you have to wash? Yishanim no, Achroidim yes. Major effect to Gemara. Sorry?
Practically, do you wash my machronim when you bench by yourself?
So Tosfos says right over here at the top, the Gemara is going to say so as well. So let's bring it up. The Berachos b'soif perek el dvarim darish tavayu mikra v'hiskadishtem elamayim rishonim v'sim kedoshim elamayim achronim but vasmachta ba'almi. Why? Here's the very important line: the time of the mayim achronim have a mishum melech sedomis, because we're afraid there's melech sedomis that if you touch it and then you touch your eyes, it can blind you. Kedamer b'samach, like the Gemara is going to shortly say. But anu nowadays, l'pishayin melech sedomis motzi beinenu loy nahagu b'mayim achronim. Our minig is not to be so makar mayim achronim because we no longer have melech sedomis amongst us, so that danger which mandated the whole reason for my machronim is no longer.
It's because of that whole Misa that happened where, I don't know, some woman or something. No.
We're going to get to that story too. That's a good point. Wow, I don't know how you remember that story. We're going to get to that story right at the top of tomorrow's Amud Aleph. So Zok to Gemara. It says Mayim Rishonim v'achronim chayva and emtsoyim rishus. Zok to Gemara. Mitzvah legabe rishus chayva kar. Really, Rishonim is only mitzvah, not chayva. The reason why it's called chayva because it's juxtaposing it to the emtsoyim, which are only rishus. Gufa. Mayim Rishonim v'achronim chayva emtsoyim rishus. So the halach is Rishonim noitlin bein bechli bein al gabi kark. We're not talking about what you use to pour the water. We're looking at what you're using to capture the water. So my Rishonim, you could pour the water into a basin, or you could pour the water on the floor. But you could only pour them into a basin because you don't want that water on the floor because weiter someone can get hurt by it. Well, Amri law, there are those who say ein noitlin al gabi karka. They don't say my Rishonim has to be bechli. It just shouldn't be al gabi karka. So how could you have in the middle? It's either chli al gabi karka. Kinsa is if there's a pile of wood that you did mayim achronim on. So at the end of the day, if you need a kli, it's not a kli. But if you're in gabi karka, this is not a gabi karka because there's wood of it. It's a pile of wood. Therefore, I guess you won't.
Well, sometimes you see a lot of people. They'll take the cup and they'll pour it on their hand, like under the table, so that if it spills off, it'll go on the floor or something like that. No,
yeah.
So that's wrong.
They don't want, because there's also a ruach ra. Rashi is also a concept of ruach ra, and they don't want the ruach ra on the table.
Right, but if it's not supposed to go on the floor, then that's not correct either. Then.
But I think that was only if it was melech sedomis. To develop melech sedomis is not negay anymore. It's only a ruach ra, so that's what they do that. Okay, talk to Gemara about it. Mayim Rishonim noitlin bein b'cham and bein b'tzonim. It could be hot water or cold water. Why? Because hot water does not clean well. It blows up your hands. And will not remove the zuama. Raji is ashtant, which is it softens your hands. If anything, it opens your pores and allows the zoyam asatafshil to get absorbed into your hands. We're trying to get rid of it. Dr. Gemara Vayter, Mayim Rishonim, Noitlin bein becham and bein b'tzoy. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yannai. That you say you can use hot water, Leishonu elo she'ena yad soiledos. It could be hot, but it can't be hot enough that you would pull your hand away because it's too hot. Let's turn over onto the base. But if it was such hot water that your hand would get burnt, you couldn't use that for Mayim Rishon. There are those who learn on the Seifa, Pum Fakir. Achroinim ein noitlin elabetzodim. Mayim achroinim you could only use cold water, aval mechaben loy, and on that, Amr Bitzuk by Yosef, Amr Bianai, Lashonu El Shayad, so that's behen. The water that we said you cannot use hot water for Mayim achroinim, that's only if it's that hot that you would burn yourself. Any yad sheyad ben noitlin you could even use for Mayim achroinim mechlal the rishonim afal pi sheyad sheyad ben muter. So it's much for that Mayim Rishonim, even though it was boiling hot, you could still use that for Mayim Harishonim. And Tzoy Rishus, Amar Nachman Leishonu Elabein Tafshul Latafshul. That I would say is Tzoy Rishus is between different dishes. Tafshul Gvina like. Now Toysvis doesn't like Rashi chat because Tafshul means between the soup and the chicken, like. Why would the Brisa even address that? You don't need any type of washing at all. So because of this, Rabbeinu Tam builds out a major kula which we do not paskin, and we hold that if you have a tavshil that has tam of milchix in it, for instance, you cook soup in a milchig pot, and then you cook something else in a fleshig pot. Both parv, you wouldn't be able to eat them. One has a dinner fleshix, one has a dinner milchix. Toys was old in the same meal. You're allowed to eat a tafshil that was cooked in a milchig pot with a tafshil that was cooked in a fleshig pot, and you just have to. And here the chiddush is that you don't have to wash in between them. But so that's a big kula the chiddush in Toys, the top Toys. Amar Nachman Lashonol b'tafshil, tafshil b'tafshil gvina, because you have to get the residue of the meat off your hand.
But it can't be talking about that because we just said you have to wait. So it's got to be where you ate the cheese first, or the milk.
That's one of Toys's timeless. That's what one of Toys's timeless is. What do you mean ben tafshel gvina? There for sure you're not allowed to eat it because you have to wait. It's not even relevant.
Right. It should be ben gvina.
Exactly. That's exactly one of Tosfos's kashas that leads them to. Tosfos says it's look at the top skinny line. But near the top, the tavshel l'gvina mash with tavshel tchilo kedam aliyah hamayisha, right?
Right.
So that's exactly what Tosfos is lawyer. Why Tosfos doesn't like Rashi shot. That's why he learns that it's speaking not by a real tafshel of meat, it just means you cooked it in a place in a pot and it had a taste of meat, but it didn't have any meat inside it. Amar Yehuda Barei in every salt there's some content of melech sedoimis which would blind someone. There's so little of it, one little piece would be found in an entire kur, a large amount, but even that much is dangerous. What if you're still working with salt? You're working with salt, you're pouring it around. Would you have to also wash? Is there concern? Let me boy. Of course you have. So Lemi boy could be touched as you don't have to. So how did I get it that Lemi boy you for sure do have to? So for that I have to go into the Moisef Rashi, where Rashi says, here it doesn't show it, but in the Moisef Rashi that I had in the side of my ArchScroll Gemara, it said that Lemi boy means you for sure do have to. I don't see it here in the Beit HaKosher, but that's how Lemi boy. I think the ArchScroll touches as well. Lemi boy, for sure you do have. Go to Gemara Vayter. Amar Abai, Mereish Avamina. I used to think, the reason why you don't just do Maya Bachronim on the floor, Mishum Zuhama, because of the Zuhama that's in the water. That's what I used to think. Amali Mar, but Mar told me Mishum Deshari Ruach Ra alike, because there's a Ruach Ra. So it's funny because we bidafka do, we don't do it on the floor, but we do it under the table, I guess, because we don't want that Ruach Ra in front of us. That's why we cover it over. So Zuama, Rashi says, it's not nice to pour it on the floor because it's smelly. But that's not the reason. The reason is because of Ruach Ra. The minig is you don't take anything off of a table while somebody is sitting by that table and drinking. Shema yera davar kalkala b'suda. We're afraid that the person, while he's drinking, is going to object to the fact that you're removing something that he needs for his suda from the table. He'll get angry, and it's going to cause him to choke on what he's drinking. But Amal Imar, that's not why. It's Mishum the Kachi L'Ruach Tzarada. It's bad for Ruach Tzarada, which causes headaches. Again, the most of Rashi says it causes headaches, the Chatzi Roisha, whatever that means. That's only a problem if you take something back and you don't put it back. But if whatever you take, you put right back, so then there won't be a problem of Ruach Tzarada. And again, if you took it more than 4 amos away from the table, but if it was still within range of the table, less lamba, there wouldn't be a concern. So only something that was required for the suda. If there's some random thing on the table that wasn't relevant for the suda, that you wouldn't have a problem taking away. He was even makbid not to take a mortar and pestle that you would grind spices with, because he said that's immediately the trichel sudasa. That's something that you could need if you wanted to grind some pepper and put it on your steak. That would be relevant, and therefore you're not allowed to take that away during the soup. Only Mar, I'm sorry. That people wipe up crumbs from their table is mishum menachirusa, because they want their table and their house to be clean. There shouldn't be crumbs all over the place. But only Mar mishum the kashi la niyusa. It's because it's bad for aniyus. It makes you poor. The malach that's in charge of making people poor likes dirt, and he hangs out in dirty places. Cleanliness is godliness, and when it's clean, the malach that wants to make you poor will run away. He will not be comfortable in such an area. Hu gavri dava mahader alei Saradan Yusa, the malach of Anias, was following him. He was on the mission to make this fellow poor. He was not able to ever catch the guy to make him poor. The Kazar and Ashvara Tuva. He was very, very careful with cleaning off his table and not leaving crumbs around. Yom Echad, Korach Lifta Ivli, he took the crumbs from his Suda and he dumped it on the floor on grass. Omar the Masan, finally I got him. Haktavat enough will be a day. And a moment later, Basadachal, as soon as the Yid finished eating, I see Mara, he took a shovel. Akarinu lively, he dug up that entire area where he put his crumbs, and Shadenu Linahara, he threw it into the river. Shame, he heard a malach complaining. The Omer Vai the Afke Gabra Mibese. This Yid just threw me out of his house. By keeping it clean, I was chased out, and now I couldn't even touch him. If you remember Abai, Maresh Havamina, I used to think, Haideloi Shati Ufia, that you don't drink the foam, like you fill up a cup of beer and it foams up. People don't drink that foam. Mishum Isusa, because it's meals. Amalimar, no, it's Mishum the Kashi Lakarsa. It causes some type of issue where your mucous membranes flow because they get irritated, and then you start having a terrible runny nose. The Mishnah, if you drink it, Kasha Lakarsa, it's bad, causing this issue. If you just blow on the suds, Kasha Lareisha, it's going to give you a headache. Medachia, and if you just wipe it off and throw it away, Tachi La Niyusa, it's going to make you poor. My Takante, so what are you supposed to do with these suds? The Shake Shkuye, you just have to wait until it dies down, settles down on its own. Lakarsim the Chamer, what if someone is suffering from this ailment because he did drink the suds off of wine. Shichra, you drink beer. If you have the problem of shichra, you have the problem because you drank the suds of beer. The solution to that is maya. But the maya, if you ate the foam off of water, I'm not sure why water would foam, less late takanto, you're out of luck. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, because the rich drinks wine, so he could solve his problem with beer, or someone mediocre could drink beer and he could solve his problem with water. But a poor person only drinks water. So if he gets it from water, what is he going to drink? He will not have a solution to heal his karkum. His carson. I mean. Zok Gemara V'Amar Abai Mereish Havamina Hai Deloy Achri Yarka Mikisha Dasar Gino. The reason why you're not allowed to just pull a vegetable out of a pre-bundled bundle that the farmers make. So let's say you go buy from the farm a bundle of carrots. You shouldn't just yank one carrot out of the bundle. You should domestic karaf sanusa. It looks like you're a fresher. You're grabbing it out of the bundle. Ramai told me if you grab vegetables out of a bundle, it makes you susceptible for a mechachev to cast a spell upon you. They were traveling on a boat. This goyish woman asked them, I want to sit beside you. Loy usva. They wouldn't want to sit there. It's like when you get onto a plane and there's a woman there, they make a big deal. I don't want to sit there. They don't want to sit there. Amra Milsa, she said something of Kishif. Astra La'arba, the ship was like tied up, it couldn't move. It got stuck. Amr Inu Milsa, they said something, Sharyua, and they were mater. So Rashi points out, how could they do Kishif? So Rashi has two different pshat. One is, how could they do Kishif? They're allowed to use Kishif to neutralize someone else's Kishif spell. Or Vikadamri, to Amru Shem, or they said something, Shem Hashem. The article brings down from the Baal Shem Tov that the words that they said was Bechashefa Loi Sechaya. So that was what they said. Mechashefa Loi Sechaya. You have an article there, Shlomi?
Yeah, exactly.
So could you read that note? It brings a very interesting note from the Baal Shem.
How do you know it's from the Baal Shem Tov? Doesn't say that.
He quotes it from the Baal Shem.
Is V'ayin Sham Menachem Meishiv Nefesh Sherab Sefer Echad Shekosav Shemash. Oh, Shem Hamesh. Yes, he does say it. Shehem Amru, could they list her as a kishav in order to get rid of the kishav of the woman? Or Posav Mechashev Lo Sechaya. Shamri Soy B'Kavonas B'Seyumes B'Sugelas Levatal Kol Minik Shofim. Right, because that's the purpose.
That destroy the mechashefa.
Right. V'Gamor Melamedes Oisanu Zois B'Omra Omru Enu Milas. I don't know what that.
Oh, so Milas is Mem Lamitzaf, right? That's what I forgot. Mem Malzav Mechashefa Loi Sechaya.
Oh, I should have kept on reading. Shu Rosh Hashanah shall posuk zeh. Because of Mechaber Oisay Sefer Shegia Liyadoi Gemara Dofus Yoshan.
Gemara Dofus Yoshan. Yeah, an old print.
An old print.
So they said Milsa was Mechashefa Loi Sechaya.
Similar Rosh Hashanah. That's why they did Milas, because it was in a Rosh Hashanah.
And so they used the word Milsa.
Yeah.
So she told them, "My Evid Lahu, what can I do? I can't win over you with Kishif because you protect yourself in three ways. You don't wipe yourself with a hard shard. You use cottonelle toilet paper. You don't kill bugs on your begodim, meaning you clean your bugs of lice. You clean your begodim of lice. You don't have lice on your begodim. And you don't eat vegetables out of a bundle that the farmer made. The reason why people would not eat people would not eat yirakas that fell. Ataka means on the ground, I believe. Mishum miyisusa, because it's mias. Amolimar mishum the kosher l'reich. It will give you bad breath. V'yomer Abaye Marei Shavamina Hadlo Yosvetusin Merziva. The reason why you wouldn't sit under an eaves where water runs out of Mishum Shoichin. Everybody knows, any yeshiva bacher who ever walked down Rechoiv Mei Sharim on a Friday afternoon must have at least fallen victim to getting splashed from sponge water at least once. So you know why you need to know where every single marzev is coming out of someone's merpeset, and you need to avoid that on a Friday afternoon where everyone's doing sponge. But Amali Mar, Mishum the Shchichim Mazikin would hang out under these rain spouts. Hanish Kuloi, there was a group of movers, schleppers, the Havadori Chavisa the Chamer, they were schlepping a heavy barrel of wine. They wanted to rest. So Ishvua Tusi Marziva. They put this barrel under the marzev and then they sat down to rest. Paka, it ruptured. Also the Mar Barbashi, because they assumed it was a mazik that did it. Abik Shipura, he pulled out a shofris, and Shamte, he put the shadim, the mazikin, into chayrim for damaging the barrel. Also they came to him. Amr lei, amai savadach. He asked him, why did you do this? Amr lei, hey chiyavet, what do you want us to do? We were sitting there relaxing, and he put the barrel on my ear. So of course I'm going to break it. Why would someone, if I'm lying down taking a nap and someone puts a barrel of wine on top of my ear, what a chutz? Amr lei, they said you're still at fault because at b'duchto the shchichi rab mabois. What business do you have taking a nap in the middle of the street where people could easily put things and not realize you're there? Atu deshanis, you're the one who did something that was out of the ordinary. Zil shlim, you got to pay for this barrel. So he's having a conversation with a mazik and telling him he has to pay. Okay, I'll accept your verdict. Hashtanami likfali marzimna. Give me a time. I don't have the money on me. Give me time. I'll come up with the money. He did set apart that time. Kimota zimna, when the time arrived, Yaakov, he didn't meet the deadline. He didn't come up with the money fast enough. Kiyosa, when he finally showed up with the money, Amr lei, Mar Baravashi asked him, Amai lo yasis bismanach, why are you late? Amr lei, don't you know? Kol mili, the tzayer v'chosen, if it's wrapped or if it's sealed, v'chayil if it's measured, or money if it's counted, lestlan rishusa l'mishkal minei. We are not allowed to touch money. Adam mishkachina midi defker. If we find money that's hefker, then and only then could we do it. So I couldn't just get a job and do it. Actually, I had to wait till I found something, and now I brought money because I found. The Fortune speak out that we know if you don't count your money, it will grow. Why will it grow? Because it's less of a nest, because you don't know how much is there. So therefore, that's the way to make your money grow. But so therefore, if your money grows and it inflates and it's not really yours, so that money isn't really yours yet. It's like hefker money that you're going to be able to get. So therefore, that money is the money that the master could take from. So if it's someone in my and your money is inflating, he would be able to siphon off that type of money. So that's what the Gemara means. Once it's quantified and sealed and measured, so now it's not called hefker anymore. That's part of what you own. It's not the inflation that Hashem is bringing to you. So we wouldn't be able to tap into that. The reason why at the beginning of a jug you would pour some water out and you won't drink the first bit, mishum tzivsa, because of pieces of wood or other things that are in the water, you want to get rid of any impurities that floated to the top. But Amali Mar, it's not the reason. It's mishum deika mayim haroim. It's because there's water that could have had a bad spell cast on them because a shade would have drank from them. Hubar Sheda, Davaber Papa. There was a shed that worked for a papa, which is very interesting. He was the son of a shed. So I'm not sure, was he human, was he not human? I know David has a whole shtickle on the Malachim and the B'nai Malachim in the times of the Sefer Bereshis that they made it with humans and they were half malachim, half people walking around. David, could you share that with us?
Those are the giants. I traced the giants from the beginning where the Torah talks about it till the end in Tanakh, where David HaMelech or shortly afterwards, Goliath was probably one of the last of the giants. And how do we get giants? If the Mabul destroyed everyone except for the four couples really, including Noach, how is it that they survived? I discussed that.
So not malach.
It's not Shadim, it's not Mazikim.
So here you have a bar shade. I don't know exactly what this was, but he actually had a job, and he worked for a papa.
Okay. There's actually a Rashi that says Shadim went into the table. It's quoting a medrash, of course.
But it's called a bar shade, so I'm not sure what that means. It was the son of a shade. Was it possible for a shade to mate with a human?
Okay. Archel touches it as a shade echad, not bar.
There's a discussion in the Medrash about the fallen. They call it the fallen angels. That's why they're called Nephilim, because they're malachim that came down and they didn't follow the instructions of the Ribono Shalom, and they mated with human females, and that's how you get giants. That's a medrash.
So maybe that's what it was. But he was for sure a shady character.
Ooh.
The Havavera Papa. He went to get water for his master. Or Papa sent him to get some water. He was late. Took him more time than expected. He also what took you so long? I know that the Shadim just drank from that river. So I wanted to wait till that water flows away and fresh water came so that I wouldn't bring for you infected water. Adahaki, in the meantime, let's just get out to Amar Aleph. Adahaki Chazanu de Kashadi Maya Bipuma de Chatz. He saw Rav Papa anyway was pouring out the water from the top. So the shade said, Omar, you have Yadana, the Regalisul Mevadapi. If I would have known that you automatically take that precaution anyway, I would have taken the water right away. So Fred touches, why didn't the Malach do that? Kazan the top touches, he could have just taken the water and poured some out. Or he could have taken the water that had set that on it and told the puppy, you better pour the top off. Could be he didn't want to disclose this because he thought it was a trade secret of the Shadim, so he didn't want to tell humans about it. Or maybe he knew that it only works to get rid of the Mayim Aroyim if the person drinking it itself, if that person pours them off. But he wouldn't have been able to prep it that way. Okay, we'll stop here, and Ben Hashem, we will continue tomorrow. A guten Chodesh.
Yasher Koyach.
Oh, yeah.